Now, it's probably one of the most overlooked questions that The Force Awakens left us with, and that would be, why did Ben Solo change his name to Kylo Ren of all names? And sure, the answer as to why he changed it at all might be as simple as he did it because he hated his father and didn't want the name Solo anymore. Or, then again, maybe it was given to him by Snoke when Ben became his apprentice. And since we've been informed by Pablo Hidalgo that there were no Sith in The Force Awakens, it means that whatever Kylo Ren and Snoke are, they're not Sith, and wouldn't use the title of Darth as Sith do. So perhaps Ren is simply the title used by this new or different type of dark side user, but there are some problems with that idea. Like the fact that Snoke does not use the Ren title. In other words, he isn't called Snoke Ren. And we can be sure of this because Kylo is the master of the Knights of Ren, said by Snoke himself in The Force Awakens. And clearly, Kylo is not Snoke's master, which also means Ren is likely something separate from whatever Snoke is. So, if Ren is indeed just a title then, two curious questions come up. First, why is he called Kylo Ren and not Ren Kylo? Because usually titles are placed before a name and not after it. Another question would be, why have the Knights of Ren been named after, or named themselves after, a title of all things? It would be similar, assuming Ben Solo had become a Sith, to them calling themselves the Knights of Darth. And because of that, I think we can pretty safely assume that Ren is not just an arbitrary title someone came up with, but is the name of a person, place, or thing of significance, most likely to both Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren who follow him. And considering Kylo Ren changed his name to it, I think we can pretty safely assume Ren was a person and not a place or thing. Though of course there's no way to be 100% certain of that. It's also interesting to note that even though he changed both his names, it was his surname or last name that he changed to Ren, which, interestingly enough, could imply he believes himself to be part of that family or have some other close association with whoever Ren might be. And speaking of who Ren might be, is there any way to make any logical deductions about that? Well, I believe there is, and that's by looking at the Knights of Ren and what we know about them. And the first thing we know is their likely origin, and that is that they came from a group known as the Acolytes of the Beyond, which is basically a Vader-worshipping cult that sprung up after his death, and one we've learned about almost exclusively in the Aftermath book series. And in that series, we learn that they have primarily been trying to track down items of significance to Vader, such as his red lightsaber, though they also seem to collect other Sith memorabilia, if you will, because we know that some of them, those who have earned the right anyway, wear ancient Sith masks. And from what we've seen and know about the Knights of Ren from The Force Awakens itself, they too seem to wear masks and of course follow Kylo Ren, the grandson of Darth Vader, who the Acolytes basically worshipped. So I don't think it's much of a stretch to assume that these worthy Acolytes of the Beyond have become the Knights of Ren. But again, why call themselves Ren? Wouldn't it almost make more sense to be called the Knights of Vader if they have such a fascination with him? And along those same lines, if Kylo chose his new name, wouldn't it also make more sense if he chose a name that honors his grandfather, who he was also fascinated with? So what if Ren was a name of great significance to Darth Vader, even if he himself never knew it? What if it was the name of his father or creator? And yes, I realize that the two most popular theories surrounding Anakin's birth are that he was either created by the Force itself to act as the one who would fulfill the prophecy to bring balance to the Force, or that he was a creation of Darth Plagueis, who somehow, befittingly enough, created the one who would ultimately destroy the Sith. But what if it's actually neither? And giving us Anakin's true origin, and different from what we've always assumed, is going to be how Disney starts to shake up Star Wars and really make it their own. What if this is going to be the rumored big reveal? And also keep in mind, Lucasfilm has said the saga movies are always going to be the story of the Skywalkers. So maybe now is when we start to learn their true origin. But what could that true origin be? Well, keeping in mind that Disney and Lucasfilm wiped away the old expanded universe and all the history that went with it, it means what we thought we knew about the history of the Jedi and the Sith and the Force itself could be radically changed from how it used to be. And whether you like it or not, they don't have to keep anything the same if they don't want to. Now, you might think that's a horrible idea or even get mad at the mere thought of it because you like how things used to be, and I'll put myself right there along with you. But they, on the other hand, no doubt love the idea of a completely blank slate to work with, one where they can do anything they want or need to do to fit future stories, or even the future direction of the entire franchise. And I think the fact that we're going to be taken to the first Jedi Temple in Episode 8 is a good indication we're going to get a history lesson of some degree in this next movie, and it's likely going to be very different from the way things used to be. So who exactly might Ren be? Admittedly, most of what will follow is pure assumption, but maybe he was the very first Jedi and created the Order, which would be interesting because Luke is now called the Last Jedi and seemingly wants to destroy that very same Order. This would also explain why Luke went in search of the first Jedi Temple, to learn the truth about his distant ancestor and for what purpose the Order was originally created, and he didn't like what he found and now believes the Jedi need to be destroyed and something new born on totally different ideals. Or maybe it's the opposite, and Ren was actually the first Sith, which again is interesting with Luke now being the last Jedi. And yes, again, I know this isn't the origin of the Sith from the old EU, but as I said, they do not have to hold to that, because keep in mind, above all else right now, their top priorities are making a quality movie and telling a great story, and if that means the origin of the Sith needs to be changed to accomplish that, they'll certainly do it. And just to be clear here, Ren could either be a family name, and there were many generations of that family, all the way down to Shmi, who, by that time, had become known as the Skywalker, which would then mean one of three things. The Force still chose her to give birth to the Chosen One because of her lineage and connection to the First Jedi. Or Plagueis, keeping in mind that that fantastic book about him is not considered canon, created Anakin using Shmi to give birth to him, somehow knowing her true lineage and connection to Ren. He may have even hoped the Jedi would find him and mistake him for the Chosen One. And then when asked by Qui-Gon who the father was, Shmi may have lied and said there is no father, instead of telling him that he was the result of experiments done upon her. Or there really was a father, and again, Shmi lied and said there wasn't one, hoping this would intrigue Qui-Gon enough to free her son and take him with him. And keep in mind, I don't think there's much a loving mother wouldn't do to see her son free from slavery, including lie. Another possibility is that there was only one Ren, and again, he may have had something to do with the first Sith or Jedi, but something happened to him and he was for one reason or another imprisoned in the unknown regions of the galaxy, which means he is actually the dark side power out there that we learn about in the Aftermath series, not Snoke as I myself have been assuming for some time. And perhaps when the remnants of the Empire went out there, which is where they are heading at the end of Aftermath, they encounter Ren, and Snoke, who may have been with them for all we know, and part of the Empire all along, was told the truth about the Skywalkers by Ren, and that Anakin was actually somehow created by him through the Force. And this is why Snoke takes such an interest in Ben Solo, because he knows what Ben Solo is and what he can become. Then again, maybe it's instead the Acolytes of the Beyond that discovered the truth about the Skywalkers, and that they somehow come from a long-lost bloodline known as Ren. And this is when they changed their name to the Knights of Ren. And when the galaxy learned the truth that Princess Leia was actually the daughter of Darth Vader, which happened roughly 6 years before the events of The Force Awakens, as we learn about in the book Bloodlines, this is when the Knights of Ren sought out Ben Solo, who they now know to be the grandson of Vader, and told him the truth. And also keep in mind that Ben Solo was never told who his grandfather was. The secret was kept from him his whole life, or until it became public knowledge, I should say. And who knows how he reacted to that truth, to finding out that he was the grandson of Darth Vader, especially if the Knights of Ren did seek him out and begin to tell him that not only is he his grandson, but the Skywalker lineage is actually much older and darker than anyone ever knew. Even though they actually haven't always been Skywalkers, but rather were once known as Rens, which is why Ben Solo changed his name to Kylo Ren to honor his true heritage, and maybe this is when he renames the Acolytes of the Beyond the Knights of Ren and becomes their master. Kylo may have also told the truth to Luke after he destroyed the other Jedi, and this is the reason why Luke went in search of the first Jedi Temple, to see if there is any truth to what his nephew has told him, and what he finds there, again, leads him to believe that the Jedi need to end. It's also possible that when Kylo Ren vows to the Mask of Vader in The Force Awakens that he will finish what he started, he's actually going to finish whatever the original Ren started, and again, this might be something Vader never even knew about. Though it might even be more interesting if Vader himself had learned the secret at one point of who and what he was and had plans of his own that we never knew about. It could be the real reason why he so badly wanted his son Luke to join him and help him destroy the Emperor. And yes, this theory obviously has some problems, even though it is based on a pretty good presumption, I believe, that being that the name Ren has great significance and is actually the name of someone who we are likely to learn more about in The Last Jedi, and someone who may have ties to the very first Jedi. One of the bigger problems, however, is how does the prophecy of the Chosen One factor into all of this? Well, as Yoda himself admitted, it is a prophecy that may have been misread. We also have no idea who actually created the prophecy. It could very well again stem back to the first Jedi and Ren, who made it heralding the return of a savior, who was actually anything but, even though Anakin did seemingly bring balance to the Force. The problem with that, however, is that here we are only 30 years later and the Force is again out of whack. So what if Anakin wasn't the Chosen One, but it is actually Rey, and the true purpose of the Chosen One is to bring balance to the Force by destroying the Ren bloodline once and for all, which means it would now be her role to destroy both Kylo Ren and Luke. Another big problem with this is that it really begins to change everything about the first two trilogies in the saga, which some might not like, but I have to believe this isn't something Disney would shy away from. They do want to make Star Wars their own, and this is one way to do it. Yet another problem is, this isn't likely going to be the easiest story to present and have casual fans and average moviegoers be able to follow. But then again, I could be on the general right track here, but way off with the details. And in the end, the story of how Ren, or the family name, ties into the Skywalkers could be much different and much simpler to understand. Either way, I do think they have to do something big in this trilogy. They have to bring something new and different into the story of the Skywalkers. And what better way to do that than to explore just where they come from and what their true purpose might be. Again, I have to believe there is a very good reason Ben Solo chose the name Kylo Ren. I even think this theory could give a whole new meaning to the beginning of The Force Awakens when Lor San Tekka says to Kylo Ren, "You cannot deny the truth that is your family," and Kylo, knowing the true origin of his family, says, "You're so right," before he kills him. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to let me know what you think. Is this theory too far-fetched, or am I possibly onto something here? And what would you think about the history of the Skywalkers being radically changed from what we thought it might be? Let me know in the comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.